This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it's time for Avoid the Maze. And on Avoid the Maze, we talk about life because that's what we're all going through. And life is a maze. Sometimes we hit the wall, and sometimes we crawl over it. Sometimes we turn around and go backwards. But today, I have a guest on who we're going to talk about his music, which travels through his life. He has a new song coming out, which I'm excited to share because I've been listening to it all morning, Michael, and it is phenomenal. Michael Lazar is Miami-based singer, songwriter, and his music blends pop, theater, and poetry into something very personal. Sometimes we don't realize that many of the songs that we listen to are the personal journeys of the songwriter and performer. So, Michael, take me on a journey of how you started developing this career and how all these songs are just so intensely personal.
Sure. Thank you for that introduction, by the way. Um, my music career really began when I was 8 years old. I was attending a violin recital that my brother was a part of. And it wasn't the violin that took me, but it was the piano. And it was a very particular method of music learning called the Suzuki method, which is primarily taught by ear. There is note reading, but a huge part of it is listening to the music and repetition and getting it into your body. So there are songs that honestly, I can remember some of these Beethoven songs that my piano teacher taught me from when I was 12 years old to now without even needing to open a book. And that's because of the method that I was taught. But anyways, which helped my songwriting for sure as well. But when I was 8, I began piano lessons. And then around that time, I also began performing in plays on stage. I was cast as the lead, just there were no auditions, but my teacher cast me as the lead in the musical, the big second grade musical when I was also 8 years old. So it's kind of a pivotal year for me, I guess. But that's when I began my journey on stage as well. So from 8 to 18, I was really just like honing in on both piano and performing. And I was so in love with performing, and I was acting all the time on stage and in and out of school. And then when I was 18, I applied early and auditioned for NYU Tisch, and I ended up getting accepted and I attended. And that's actually the same studio, the one that I attended, the Cap 21 Musical Theater Studio, is the same one that Lady Gaga was attending. She was a couple years behind me, but I feel a very much like a synergy with her. I'm sure a lot of people do because she's such an inspiring artist, but I really do have a similar track as to her in a way because she also plays the piano and she's taken these personal stories and turned them into pop songs with a beat, and she's really amazing in that way for me. But anyways, during that time period in college, I was, I don't want to say I was struggling to fit in with the acting lifestyle, but there were elements maybe socially that weren't totally like, I don't know, meshing with me. And
Sure.
so I found myself sometimes like escaping into studio rooms during lunch periods or times when I had a break and I was writing music, like songs. Some of my favorite songs to this day are from when I was 18, 19, 20 years old. And um, usually in every um, well, I have two now, 5149 and Daydreaming, but there's always at least two or three or one or two or anyways, a couple of those original songs that I drop in there and kind of revamp and restyle
Sure.
to keep like my foundation, I guess, present. And I love those songs. And in my next project, I'm going to feature even more of those. But anyways, so I was doing that, and that's where a lot of my songwriting came into fruition, I guess you could say. Um, so Let's see, I graduated NYU and I did do some really amazing theater credits. Like I did the national tour of Seussical the Musical and You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, and they were wonderful productions. And then I came back to New York and I would have survival jobs and do the audition thing, of course. And in and around that time, I also fell into the visual art scene. So another interesting thing about me is I really am a multidisciplinary artist. So the visual art has always been another side of me that sort of was, I don't even want to say it was a hobby, it was a passion. It was a full-on passion, just like songwriting and performing. So in any event, I ended up becoming a part of a gallery scene. I was the unpaid intern, and then I became a gallery assistant, and then I worked my way up and um, sort of just was really figuring out like what direction I wanted to go. And I was really actively working on all of these things, which could get a little confusing at times because I didn't know like which outlet to really be like driving. But I knew that I loved all of them, all of these things, these passions. Um, Anyway, my world got rocked when I was 30 because my mom passed away. And that was a real like game changer for me. It was also the same year I met the man I'm still with today. So it was another like pivotal year, I guess you could say, because I went through some really like just monumental things that were really difficult. And they definitely sort of shifted my course a little bit because I had to get real about certain things, like I needed to make sure I had like a consistent like income and like things like that in addition to pursuing my dreams. So like it became a little bit more challenging, I think, to, be the struggling actor. I really I didn't feel like it was going to work for me to do those morning auditions and not know what was coming. I didn't have, so much. My dad is a wonderful supporter, so I mean, I don't want to take anything away from
Sure.
from him being alive and present and supporting me, but not in like a financial way, but being there for me, and he is. But my mom was a huge safety net for me, and so that was kind of like pulled out from under me. And I did have my partner, Chris, so that was wonderful. But I was navigating that, and so I took a real job, like selling artwork, and so it did sort of steer me a little bit away from my performance career. I was able to still write music, amazing music that's all present on 5149, which is a chronicle of my journey through loss and love. And that's really what that whole album is about. So I was able to use those experiences to, tell my musical story.
Right.
And that's really where the autobiographical part of my music comes into play. Before, up until 30, I was writing what I think are still some of my favorite songs, but they weren't so much like stories of my experience. They were more like beautiful poems that had a concept, but it wasn't rooted in my experience.
Sure.
So, from 30 on, the music is all very personal now. And sometimes I do write about things that haven't happened to me. I do that still a little bit, but more often than not, it's drawn from, my personal experiences. So I think that probably answers your question. I think I
Sure.
haven't gotten into daydreaming, but it kind of gets us to
To daydreaming.
daydreaming.
Well, as I listen to your story, there's a number of things that resonate, and I'm hoping our listeners will hear this. That I happen to have a brother and a son who are musicians in their own right. My brother's a producer, but growing up, my brother picked up the trumpet one day and just played it. It was like, how do you know how to do this? You never took lessons. He can sit down at a piano and He can put music out there. Um, he plays a banjo. He plays a ukulele.
Oh
Um,
wow. So
but
he's
no training. And even as a producer, an engineer, he taught himself. He just has that ability. And sometimes we think, well, you have to be trained. And reality of it is you are trained, you're training yourself. And that's what I
right.
heard in your story. And even with the artwork, it's something that's coming from deep inside. I cannot tell you how many times I've thought, boy, I'd love to paint. And then I think about it and I have no concepts of putting it out there. But when I want to write, my concepts come out.
Mm,
And nobody ever taught me how to write. I mean,
right.
we all went to school and we learned
Of
certain things,
course.
but I never had one-on-one training. So I want our listeners to understand we all have some artistic values within ourselves. And it's up to us to determine what we want to bring out. And this morning, when I was listening to your newest, which is coming out just any day now,
Oh yeah, the whole EP actually is coming out on Friday. I'm really excited.
okay, so only a couple days away, audience. Um, I listened to it initially before when I was scheduling this podcast, but I didn't listen to it in a quiet setting. It was playing, I was doing other things. This morning, I came into the office, I just turned it on, no background noise, nothing. And it was like, I'm in awe. And I think that's the best way to listen to music. But too many of us listen to it when there's other things going on and we
Hmm.
don't recognize the value of it. And I love the fact that this album is personal because now we can really connect with you.
Hmm.
5149 was beautiful, but it wasn't personal. And so it was music. This now, to me, has more value. So what was it like writing this? Because it was a change.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Um, I mean, while 5149 was still personal, it was like it was an introduction of myself to the world in a sense, even though I had been doing so much before. It was the first time I'd published my music under my name and stuff like that. So now with that under my belt, it gave me a sense of sort of freedom to really dive into whatever I wanted actually, because I knew that this time I had like a little bit of an audience and something that I had already created. And so with daydreaming, what I love about it is its levity. The whole project is it's not rooted in sadness. It's more rooted in acceptance and hope. And there's longing in there, but it has overtones of happiness, which I think is a relief for me in a lot of ways, just coming through what I in the past gone through. So each song exists as sort of like a moment of gratitude for me in a way. And each one exists sort of as just like a press and pause of just like a dream, a memory, or a fantasy, or a love letter, or and the whole album cover, which I'm excited about, is 9 Polaroids of me in the clouds, and each one is just a different scene. And the songs, there's only 6 on Daydreaming. It's an EP. It's not a full album like my other one, but the 6 songs really do have that feeling. And so I'm just very excited about it. I think, I don't know if you can see, but this is a promo for the first single,
Right.
Daydreaming.
Yep.
Yeah.
So a lot of your change in your music, if I'm understanding right, came about the time that you lost your mom.
Hmm.
Um, and you know, I love how you describe your relationship with your dad and your mom because that's exactly how my son would describe his relationship with me and his dad. His dad's a great guy, but he's there for this. Okay.
Hmm.
But I've been there for this. And sometimes that's
Hmm.
the mom impression that we have. Um, and some days I get very nervous that what's going to happen the day that I'm no longer here? What's he going to have? And so I keep trying to remind him that he has it inside of him. And it sounds like you have your mom inside of you, that
I think
she
so.
will never be gone.
No, no, definitely not. And the monarch butterfly is really a symbol of her in so many ways, and it's an icon that goes through this particular project. And I'm also raising butterflies down here in South Florida, so the whole thing is like this full circle moment that I'm really excited about,
You know,
or
and
that
I,
I'm
and I read
grateful
that,
for.
yeah, I read that about the butterflies. And here's another connection when um, my dad retired. He wanted to raise butterflies, but he couldn't because of the condo that they lived in. And so what he did was he preserved butterflies as they were dying, and
Oh, wow.
he made art out of it. And
Oh, that's
father
beautiful.
was a writer. You wouldn't have thought of him as being an artist. And anytime somebody had a butterfly that they noticed had died, like immediately they would call my dad. My dad would run over there, preserve it, and create art. And so when I read that, I thought, this is such a cool connection that we have here.
That's amazing.
But what got you into raising the butterflies?
I moved down to South Florida in 2020, the end, in really 2021. And well, my mom really, she made me a monarch butterfly pin. It was like made out of a clothespin. I'm not always one to believe in these kinds of things, but it is a very weird thing. But anyways, I made this. Well, I had a pot with a plant outside, and I put the clip on the plant. And in like 2021, halfway through the year, I just kept having like these monarch butterflies flying near me. And now I know I live in South Florida, and it is a native butterfly of the area, but it just felt odd to me because I didn't have any butterfly plants and really that many flowers. So I did take note of that. And then I went to Butterfly World, which is this amazing place, like 20 minutes from where I live. And they have a whole garden center where you can buy the host plants for the butterflies. And I got inspired and I bought milkweed. And within like 2 weeks, I had all of these caterpillars and these chrysalis, and I was taking macro close-ups of the whole process. And then it just organically turned into this like beautiful, like therapeutic pastime for me on my balcony. And I'm really blessed. I live in a townhome, so I don't have a yard. I wish I did. But what I do have are three of these. This is the first floor balcony, but it
Okay.
goes up and I have like two more. And on those balconies, I have milkweed pots, and I actually do it for other butterflies too, but it's the monarch butterfly that really is the signature kind of my jam. But they just come from the wild, and they lay eggs on the milkweed, and then they eat that milkweed, and then they do their whole process, and then when they hatch, they I have videos. I can't even count how many I have of like me with the butterfly on my hand. It's opening its wings, it's getting ready, and then it literally takes its first flight off my hand. And like every time that happens, it's like it's like a real moment of therapy for me. And it's a
Absolutely.
it brings me back to childhood every time. I gotta believe that like that's therapy for
Oh,
me.
it
And
sounds
I'm
beautiful.
helping the world. I mean, like we need the pollinators. Like
Right.
I've become sort of a pollinator activist. So go figure. So that's basically my butterfly journey. And I do connect it to my mom. I don't know if that's real or not, but I feel something there. And so I took that and I kind of like injected it into the daydreaming project. And
I
so it's
love
like a
that.
big part of that.
Well, my first real encounter with being around many butterflies was last year. My husband and I went down to the botanical gardens and they have a butterfly area. And I just stood there letting them just land and looking at them. And I never realized how many different butterflies there were.
So many.
So I understand how relaxing and therapeutic it is because I walked out of there that day and I felt like a new person.
Yeah.
And I really should go more often because I think it would be very, very helpful. Um,
Yeah.
in my garden, I don't think I've ever seen a butterfly. So,
Yeah, you gotta kind of go out of your way to like buy the host plant. It's more than just like flowers, that.
got it. Okay. So on Friday, daydreaming is going to be out there for all of us. Um,
Yes.
where can we find it?
So daydreaming is going to be available on all of the streaming platforms. If you just look up my name, Michael Lazar, Lazar, you will find all of the other music as well. And I have three singles from the EP that are already out: Daydreaming, Want Me Back, Magic Hour. Um, I don't know if this works either, but this QR code will
Okay.
take you right to my hyper follow. And from there, you can access everything. But yeah,
That sounds fantastic. Um, all this information will be in the show notes. So there's no excuse for somebody who's listening and says, oh, I forgot what he told me to do.
okay.
Guess what? It will be in the show notes. You can follow them. Um,
The other thing that I did want to make mention is
sure.
I visually have been chronicling daydreaming in a really wonderful way. I've been using artificial intelligence apps to animate my photos, but it's me in motion. And it's a really beautiful way of turning my music into like a visual experience. And you can see all of that on my Instagram account, which is Art by Lazar. And I think it's really a good way to dive into this music chapter for me is to see the visuals that go with it.
I love that. I absolutely do. Well, we're going to follow up with you in the future. As many of my listeners know, we have another show called Grief Belief. And in talking to Michael, I think that his story, his relationship with his mother, and other things that you've gone through in your life, because there are many losses that we go through in life, I think will be another journey that we can take with you that you can help others understand that there's there's no way that we can explain grief, and grief hits us all differently and hits us at different times. um, I know sometimes I can be sitting and looking out the window and all of a sudden the thought of my mother comes up and it's like, why now? And instead of asking why now, I just bring it all in. But
Mm.
that's part of grief. Grief takes us on these journeys. So we will be talking to you again soon and following up with your music because you're phenomenal. And
Thank you.
good luck to you and to Chris. And say hi to your dad because we know he does support you.
He sure does. I love my dad.
That's wonderful. Have a great day, Michael. Talk to you
Thank
soon.
you so much. Bye.
Bye.